It's 6 o'clock in the morning and your alarm is ringing.
You yawn.
Stretch and open your eyes. But this is all that you can see. Black nothingness. Can't even see the alarm that's ringing, the covers on top of you, or the bed you're sleeping in. You, my friend, are blind. Of course, that makes getting around a little more difficult. Many blind people use this. It's called a white cane, basically like an extension of your arm, allowing you to feel anything that might be in your way, which is very useful, but the problem is, can a white cane tell you if a car is right behind you, what direction you're facing, or where the bathroom is when you really have to go? That's why guide dogs are needed. People all over the nation put their lives in the paws, so to speak, of dogs just like this. To be able to do what they do, you're looking at the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the elite of the elite. It can be hard for those of us who see just fine to truly grasp how important guide dogs really are. I know it's hard for me until I heard this man tell his story. Now, Steve wasn't always blind. In fact, in high school, this guy played football, basketball, baseball, and track. The word athletic was not enough to describe him. After high school, Steve went to college but sat in the very back of his class. But he noticed as the semester rolled on, he was having trouble reading the whiteboard. The professor's handwriting must be getting worse. So he moved up a row, and another row, and another row. By the end of the semester, he was on the front row. And even then, after class, he had to walk up this far away from the whiteboard, copy down all of his notes. But Steve was stubborn. He didn't want to believe it was his eyesight going bad. Finally, when he did get him checked, the doctor told him he had a rare eye disease. Within a year, his eyesight would be gone. By the time Steve was 21, he was blind. The once athletic, totally independent Steve was now totally dependent Steve. But he refused to get a walking cane or a guide dog. To him, those were handicap labels. You might as well wear a big t-shirt that says, "I'm blind, everyone." It wasn't until a few years later, he was on a family outing and his little daughter decided to run out in front of a moving car. His pregnant wife was caught between keeping her blind husband safe or her 3-year-old daughter safe. This is when Steve realized something had to change. So he decided to get a guide dog. And what an amazing feeling of freedom he felt. He could now go places with his family without being a burden to them. And here he is on a rocky, unsteady boat, something that he'd have never been able to do without his guide dog. But Steve isn't the only person having a guide dog has helped. This is Justin. Justin is a very social person, but he noticed when he was using a white cane, people didn't want to approach him. White stick tapping in front of him was intimidating. And he also noticed when he was in loud public places like a live music concert, he could no longer rely on his hearing, and then it became as if he was blind and deaf. However, when a guide dog became his eyes and ears, all of this changed. People would actually come up to him and want to talk to him about his dog. What a striking difference from being repelled by a white cane. For 16-year-old Sammy, having a guide dog enabled her to accomplish her dreams and run cross-country. Michael Henson worked at Tower 1 of the World Trade Center on 9/11. At the time of this very picture, his guide dog is leading him out of this tower, saving his life. Having a guide dog is not just a fancy pet. It's given freedom, mobility, speed, and life to these people who lived in utter darkness. Did you know that according to the National Federation of the Blind, Texas alone has over 600,000 blind? And that's a few thousand more than any other state, except of course, California. Now obviously, not every blind person wants or is able to have a guide dog, but there still is a huge need for people who want guide dogs but are not able to have them because supply is limited. And that's why schools just like Guide Dogs of Texas are working hard to provide the right dogs for the job. Now this is Joe. Joe is blind, but that doesn't make him any less capable than a sighted person. That just means things that you and I take for granted, like finding a place to sit down or the crosswalk button. All these things are just part of our everyday life, become obstacles for Joe. However, with the aid of his guide dog, Joe can find a person by name, or even the right restroom. Probably the most important. All these things just become less of a problem for Joe. Not only do guide dogs help you find your way around, they also give you cool points. According to the American Federation of the Blind, a shocking 70% of blind people are unemployed. However, individuals with guide dogs are more likely to get well-paying jobs. These dogs are truly amazing. But before they become guide dogs, they are very playful puppies. Somebody had to breed these dogs, raise these dogs, and train these dogs. Have you ever wondered how in the world do they choose a puppy to be a guide dog? It seems like a pretty big responsibility. Well, let's take a tour through the life of one of these puppies. Now, one of these little puppies is Alice. Alice was not randomly drawn from a hat. Her and her other litter mates were bred especially for the guide dog program. And then when Alice was about 8 weeks old, she went to live with a volunteer family who taught her basic obedience and took her everywhere with them. Then when Alice was a year and a half, she went back to guide dog headquarters in San Antonio for more advanced specialized training, a kind of doggy college. And then finally, she met her client, Bernard. An amazing difference she's made in his life. By the time Guide Dogs of Texas is finished with all the raising, training, and breeding, one guide dog is worth $50,000 for just one dog. When a client comes to pick up their dog, they pay $1. And the truly amazing part to me is that the government funding they receive is none. Zero. So that means that they rely solely on donations. And obviously, the need for volunteers is huge. When I was a little girl, I saw a documentary about a girl who volunteered as a puppy raiser. Ever since then, I wanted to volunteer for myself. And I talked about it with my mom, but as I grew older, it kind of seemed too far-reaching. You know, something that would be nice, but would never really happen to me. However, this past summer, my mom was looking on the internet and finally got in contact with the only guide dog school in Texas. They told her that next week they were releasing puppies to their volunteer homes. There was one puppy that they didn't have a home for. So, that is how I ended up with this bundle of joy, also known as Ford. Ford has now successfully learned sit, down, stay, heel, and go busy. And that just means do your business. Which when I first heard that sounded really gross. But it's actually very useful because we can just tell him to go before we go anywhere, and he goes. And then we put this jacket on him, and he's free to go anywhere. Ford has been places where other dogs have only dreamed. I mean, we're talking grocery stores, department stores, the classroom, and he's also very holy because he goes to church every Sunday. As you can imagine, he is very popular with the ladies. But I'm not gonna lie, I didn't realize the magnitude of this project I was undertaking. Who knew it would be so hard to teach a puppy to walk in a straight line without sniffing, pulling, or doing his business? It's really difficult. And you know, I love Ford a lot, but there have been days where I'm thinking, can you just take him back? I would describe my experience with Ford like having a newborn. The only difference is a newborn wears diapers. So if they go to the bathroom in the middle of the grocery store checkout aisle, it doesn't matter. And yes, Ford has done that. But you know, that's okay, because this is my calling right now. Every single one of us is called to serve others in need. You know, I don't know what your dreams are, but whatever it is, I urge you, don't be like me and think, oh, that's too far-reaching. That will never happen to me. Instead, be like my mom. Go and search it out. See, when I finally realized that I had the power to help give sight to these people who lived in utter darkness, I took it with both hands. Who knows what would have happened to Steve and Justin and Sammy and Michael if they hadn't gotten a guide dog. Maybe you too can help change lives by helping Guide Dogs of Texas. I don't know whose life Ford is going to change, but I know they're going to be pretty special. We all have dreams and passions in our heart, so don't be afraid to use them. Thank you.